Hey, thanks for checking out my video. Today I'm going to show you how to frost a cake. Might sound like something you wouldn't really need instructions for, but there are some tips for making it a whole lot easier. And the very first trick that helps so much is to, after you bake your layers, wrap them in plastic and put them in the freezer for about at least an hour, because there's nothing harder than trying to frost a cake that is soft and moist and tender. That's the hardest kind of cake to frost. So if you freeze them or refrigerate them at least for a couple hours, I just put these in the freezer for about an hour. They could have gone a little longer. So the first thing you want to do is you want to put a little frosting. I've got a cake board here. Not everybody has these. You can just use a regular plate, but since I have these, that's what I'm going to use. And I have a spinning surface here, which makes everything much easier. If you have one, just kind of like a Lazy Susan thing or something, it helps a lot. So I'm going to put a little frosting on here just so that there's something for the cake to stick to. And I'm going to always put the flat side up, because when you bake, you see the dome that you get. I could cut that off and waste that cake, or I could just put the dome side down and then fill in with frosting. It'll have extra frosting filling in the gap there, but everybody loves the frosting anyway, so it's a win-win. Just put the dome down. Okay, so now I'm just gonna slap some frosting right on top there. And if you have one of these offset spatulas or just one like this, either one works. Or you could, if you had to, you could use a butter knife. You can get away with some. If you don't have these tools, you can use a lot of just things that you would have in a normal kitchen. Okay, so there, I've put that on there. Now I'm going to put this one on. Dome side down. And you can see that because of the dome, it creates kind of like a gap around the edge, but that's going to get filled right in with frosting, so nobody's going to mind that. Okay, so now, if you get yourself some piping bags, you can get these at Walmart, you can get them at Michael's, any kind of craft store. Joann Fabrics has cake decorating supplies. Get yourself some piping bags, and if you're just going to buy one tip, I would get the 1M. It's a very multi-purpose tip. It makes nice swirls, it makes nice flowers, it's nice borders, so that's the one I would recommend getting. And I'm gonna, when you put the tip in, you always want to not cut the hole too big, because it'll go right through if you do. So always cut the hole smaller than you think you need it, and then if you need to cut it a little bigger, you're good. Mine looks just about right there. Okay, so the easiest way to fill a piping bag is to put it in like a glass or something like this. That way, all the frosting gets down in there and not all over the sides. If I just took this and tried to fill it with icing, I'd have icing all over everything. So if you do this, you'll get a much neater bag. I have a recipe video on YouTube, Rhonda's Thrifty Kitchen, and it's how to make perfect buttercream. And it's a simple recipe, been using it for years. And the only variation I would say is if you like a frosting that's not very sweet, then I would add a couple extra sticks of butter. The beginning of the process is creaming your butter, and the standard recipe calls for 1 pound of butter. But if you want to have a less sweet frosting, add a couple extra sticks of butter, but use the same amount of powdered sugar. So you can't go wrong either way, just one's a little sweeter and one's a little less sweet. So right now we're just getting ready to put the frosting on our cake. And gonna do it. I wouldn't even have to have the tip in here right now, because I'm not decorating the cake. I'm just gonna get the frosting on the cake by using this piping bag. So I could have just not put the tip in there and just cut a hole in and done that. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go around in a circle. Get some everywhere. And then I'm gonna go down the side. I'm gonna go down the side, and I'm gonna, if I were doing this normally, I would be spinning and putting the frosting on at the same time, but because I'm assuming maybe you don't have one, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to do it like as if I don't have a spinning table, and I'm just gonna put the frosting on like this. It doesn't have to be neat or perfect because you're gonna spread it all out anyway. You're just trying to get it down there. This is easier than taking a scoop, putting it on, a scoop, putting it on, a scoop, putting it on. If you put some all over and then use your spatula, it's a whole lot easier. Okay, so now we've got some frosting on the whole cake. So now I'm going to just kind of smooth it out, and I am going to use my spinner here because it just makes it so much easier. I'm going to smooth out the top, and that's going to start to push some frosting down the side, and that's okay because that's what you want. So then you're going to just start smoothing the sides. If you have a spatula, this is really going to be the thing that's going to help you a lot here. And sometimes you have to take some off and then put it back on in whatever spaces it needs it. Like right there's kind of a bare space, so I'm going to put that in there. And down here I have a little bare spot, so I'm going to take a little more and put it down there. And it's okay if it's messy down at the bottom because we can clean that up later. I'm just putting a little extra on top because I pushed it down over the side, and that made the top kind of slanted downward. So I'm putting a little bit of extra on the outer part there. Okay, so now that we've got frosting all on the top, I'm just gonna spin and try to level out this top. If you leave the point of the knife sort of in the center and work your way out, it starts to smooth out. Okay, now we don't have to worry about this being 100% completely smooth because we're going to put a texture on the side of the cake, because making a perfectly smooth cake is a hard thing to do if you're not experienced at decorating cakes. It's one of the hardest things to do is get a perfectly smooth cake. So that's relatively smooth, and now that as I smoothed the side, that brought some frosting up to the top. So now I'm just gonna gently wipe it off. You know, if this was being done in a professional bakery, they would, first of all, they would do a crumb coat. And a crumb coat is where you put a coat of icing on the cake, and then you put it back in the freezer for a while, and that like locks in all the crumbs, and then you come back and you put another layer on there. But I'm trying to make this as simple as possible for you. So that's looking pretty good right there as far as smooth enough. I'm trying to make this for beginners, so it doesn't have to be anything too complicated. So now I'm gonna take my, this is a basting brush actually, and I'm gonna use this to put a texture on the side of the cake so that you don't have to feel bad about it not being perfectly smooth. So if you just put it like this, and you give it a little bit of a shimmy while you're doing it, work your way up. Now you've got a nice texture on the cake. And that looks nicer than, you know, not smooth. Not smooth is okay. I mean, you're probably not putting this in a contest or something like that, but I'm just trying to give you some tips to make it look a little more professional. So I'm gonna clean up the frosting on the bottom of the plate here. Okay, so there, now the sides are cleaned up, or the base I should say. So now we're gonna use our piping bag again. It has the tip in it. I'm gonna put some more frosting in there. And you need a lot of frosting. I know if you buy ready-made frosting, it comes in those little cans, and those little cans are not nearly enough frosting for a cake, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so I loaded up my bag again with some more frosting. I've got the 1M tip in there, and we're just gonna do something very simple on top that anybody can do. You don't have to be a cake decorator. We're just gonna do a little pile. You just squeeze it and let it pile up. And I'm gonna do another one right across from it over here. And I'm going to do one over here. Another one right there. Okay. That's very simple. And now we're just going to put some sprinkles on. So there we go. We've got a very simple but very nice looking cake that we just use some simple techniques for, and anybody can do this. You don't have to be a decorator, you don't have to have a lot of experience, and you don't have to have a lot of complicated tools. If you don't have a Ziploc bag, or I mean a piping bag, you can use a Ziploc bag to get the frosting onto the cake. You know how I squeezed the frosting all over the cake before I spread it on? You can use a Ziploc bag if you don't have piping bags. And if you don't have one of these straight edge things, you just use your spatula and use that as your straight edge around as you're going around the side. Just use that. And if you don't have a a piping tip to make the little piles of frosting on the top. Even if you had it in a Ziploc bag and squeezed little, you know, you still get little piles of icing, and by the time you put the sprinkles on them, it'd be fine. You know, it's better to have some tools if you can, but if you don't, you can get by and you can still make a decent looking cake. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you, like I said, if you want to check out my frosting recipe, it's called How to Make Perfect Buttercream, and it's really pretty easy. This only took me about, I don't know, I haven't been watching the clock, but I think it only took me 10 or 15 minutes to decorate this cake. So it's pretty simple, and once you get the hang of it, it's a piece of cake. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.